If every hill is a hill to die on, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be dead multiple times over. And let me just talk to those of you who are Democrats for you. So my background before I got into politics or before I got into radio was politics. I ran political campaigns, got myself elected to office somehow. But I ran campaigns. I was the chairman of the College Republicans for the state of Georgia for my university. Started working for a member of the House on his campaign. First campaign in '94, when the Republican wave happened, I branched out. I started running campaigns around the country. I've run federal races. I've run state races. I've run local races. I have won many more than I've lost. I even got myself elected. There are things that you have to be advised on when you run for office or run someone for office, and that is you got to pick your battles. And I know it sounds dumb to say that. Everyone's like, of course, Erickson, that's stupid advice. But you don't appreciate this. When you're running for office, the desire of the base is always to fight on every front at all the time. And what happens is it consumes massive, massive resources. And when, for example, you play the blame game with Trump where you're blaming him for a plane crash in Canada, you're blaming him for the American Airlines crash in Washington, D.C., you're blaming him for every bad thing that happens, people begin to tune it out. And because you've blamed him for everything, he gets blamed by the voters for nothing. I mean, Ken just pointed out, they're blaming Trump now for the Canadians booing the national anthem, which they were going to do anyway, over the 51st state stuff from Trump. By the way, all those boos is another reason not to make them the 51st state. Let them remain in their squalor instead of elevating them into the first world. But the left doesn't seem to have a clue. So Adnan, what's his name, Gerardis or whatever, was on MSNBC on Morning Joe.
Now, I don't know personally if the mayor has a sense of history, but anybody who does have a sense of history and is familiar with the history of authoritarianism around the world knows that I'm collaborating is a sentence with some meaning. And it got me thinking about the idea of collaboration and the fact that the mayor, who for the sake of his own narrow freedom, tried to make a deal to turn this city that is a city made of immigrants, America's immigrant city, into a city home to Trump's immigration raids. But collaboration really is a broader metaphor. We're seeing it with newspaper owners who won't stand up to Donald Trump. We're seeing it with companies that are settling lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits to appease Donald Trump to protect their wider commercial interests. We're seeing it with so many in the Democratic so-called opposition, where, except for a few, exceptions like Senator Chris Murphy and AOC and others, most Democratic lawmakers turn out to have no spine, but that was not disclosed on their medical forms. And we're just seeing again and again and again, with these scattered exceptions that are very important, some prosecutors and others, we're seeing that we're just not that brave a country in our core. And I think it's a different self-image than the self-image we have. I think Americans think of themselves as brave. We think of ourselves as the country that stood up to authoritarianism and fascism in World War II and saved Europe. We think of ourselves as a country full of spine.
We think of ourselves as a country full of spine. And why does this guy on MSNBC now think we're not brave and we don't have a spine? Because people aren't standing up to Donald Trump. Has he paid attention to the polling? A majority of Americans support Donald Trump right now. It's kind of wild that on Joe Scarborough's show, and by the way, I got a good relationship with Joe. We like each other. We may disagree at times, but I just thought it was very wild that no one in that conversation wanted to stand up and point out that why are you saying Americans aren't brave to stand up to Donald Trump when actually they support him? And the reason is honestly because no one at MSNBC does. No one on that panel does support Donald Trump. I gotta find this video clip for you because this is actually he said this last night. This is an actual thing that was said on MSNBC. This is the Reverend Al Sharpton on MSNBC.
One day, our children's children will read American history, And can you imagine our reading that James Madison or Thomas Jefferson tried to overthrow the government so they could stay in power? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at American history.
You think you heard it. You're not sure you heard it. I'm going to play it again so you can be sure that you just heard Al Sharpton say what you're not sure you think you heard him say.
One day, our children's children will read American history. And can you imagine our reading that James Madison or Thomas Jefferson tried to overthrow the government so they could stay in power? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at American history. One day, our...
Dear Reverend Al, there's this thing you apparently haven't heard of. It's called the American Revolution, where James Madison and Thomas Jefferson helped overthrow the government so they could keep power in the hands of the Americans and themselves, and they became presidents of the United States. Al Sharpton apparently has no clue that there was this revolution where Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who were involved in politics as colonists, helped overthrow their British lords and kings so they could keep power domestically. This is commentary on MSNBC. They think Americans are no longer brave because Americans aren't willing to stand up to Donald Trump because a majority of Americans agree with Donald Trump. This is how broken they are. Elon Musk talked about this with Sean Hannity last night on Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Now you're going to rescue astronauts. And now, and again, you do all of this. I would think liberals would love the fact that you have the biggest electric vehicle company in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be adored by the left, you know.
Yeah, not anymore.
Less so these days.
He killed that, huh?
I mean, less so.
I really didn't.
Well, I mean, this whole sort of like, you know, they call it like Trump Derangement Syndrome. Yeah. And I didn't, you don't realize how real this is until like you can't reason with people. So like I was at a friend's birthday party in LA, just a birthday dinner, and it was like a nice, quiet dinner, and everyone was behaving normally. And then I happened to mention, this is before the election, like a month or two before, I happened to mention the president's name. And it was like they got shot with a dart in the jugular that contained like methamphetamine and rabies, okay? And they're like, wow! And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, guys, like, you can't have like a normal conversation. Yeah. And it's like, it's like they become completely irrational.
They do. I mean, this is the situation with the left. I mean, literally, they're on MSNBC saying that America is no longer a brave country because the people won't stand up to Donald Trump because a majority of them support Donald Trump. Therefore, the country is bad. They went very, very quickly to blaming the character of the American people for not agreeing with the left. And their solution is to fight everything at all times in every directions. And I gotta tell you, that's not a good way to live. There was a time after Barack Obama got elected that the right behaved very similarly. They felt betrayed by the public for siding with Barack Obama after being tired of 8 years of Republicans. And they decided everything had to be fought. Everything had to be fought. And they tried to justify it as working. And frankly, they used the midterms after Barack Obama was elected to justify the idea you got to fight everything at every time in every way. And then what happened in 2012 rolled around, Barack Obama got reelected. People didn't take the Republicans seriously because everything was a fire. They cried wolf about everything, and people got tired of the GOP. Democratic donors, the New York Times has revealed, are struggling to donate to the Democrats right now because they actually don't think the fighting in every direction at all times and everything is actually profitable. They don't think it's effective. They don't think it's going to work. The Democratic donors, at least to some degree, are smart in that regard. They think they're getting played, and they're very angry at the left. And likewise, Democrats on Capitol Hill are furious with progressives. It's notable in that clip I played you, Adnan, what's his name, on MSNBC, actually has the audacity to say only people like Chris Murphy, Connecticut, and AOC are really fighting. They're not fighting. They're mean tweeting. They're not doing anything to obstruct. They're mean tweeting. They're going online and complaining about everything, but that in his mind is a fight, and it's not effective. It just makes them feel like they're doing something. And the Democrats in Congress are like, what do you guys expect? We don't have the House. We don't have the Senate. And a lot of what Donald Trump is doing is executive powers we can't stop that you'd be fine with if we were doing it. They don't want to restrict Donald Trump's power because they want that power. They don't have a game plan. Here, I think, is what's actually going on. The Democrats are struggling to realize they've been rejected by the public. Think about it. I mean, just think about the clip from MSNBC that we're not a brave country, we're the way we perceive ourselves. Why? Because people aren't standing up to Donald Trump. But people aren't standing up to Donald Trump because a majority of Americans agree with Donald Trump. The left can't conceive of their own rejection. The left has become the abusive stalker relationship. They can't conceive that you don't want a relationship with them anymore, so they're stalking you. They're harassing you. They're blaming you. It's not them, it's you. They need therapy. They need a restraining order is what they need. I mean, think about this. The behavior of progressives right now is one of someone in a relationship who gets rejected and can't handle the rejection. And they began stalking you. And you're to blame, not them. You're the problem, not them. You need help, not them. You need them. You got to go get a restraining order against them. The problem is you can't get a restraining order against the entire Democratic Party right now. They have no appreciation for how much the public doesn't like them right now. There's no such thing as permanence in politics. Republicans are going to get back to this point as well, where the public decides they don't like the Republicans anymore. The Republicans have to play this with a level of humility and grace that the Democrats are incapable of having. But the behavior of the Democrats right now is best explained as someone who gets broken up with and they can't handle the rejection, and they think the problem is you, not them, and they want you to know that you are the problem, not them, and that never ends well. That tends to end in jail. And the Democrats are amplifying this. They're increasingly violent. In fact, I saw yesterday a prominent progressive activist said that very soon progressives are going to have to get comfortable doing things that no one should be comfortable doing. They're headed towards violence, just like the stalker ex-boyfriend who can't take no for an answer. That is what the Democratic Party has become.